Feel like I just myself won an X Prize or maybe a Resnick Prize because I've been given the very great honor of introducing two videos with the poem in between to honor Ben Dunlap, who many of you know, Ben or Bernie if you're a Liberty Fellow. To know Ben is to love him very dearly. I do recognize that some of you may not know who Ben Dunlap is. He was one of our original moderators in the Henry Crown program, a classicist, just literally one of the wisest, kindest, funniest people one could ever meet. I'm not going to go through his whole bio because it would take too long, so I'm going to do a very Aspen thing and give you a brief snapshot through a text-based reading module. There was a short story we read during my year as a Henry Crown Fellow written by Walter von Tilburg Clark called The Portable Phonograph. And it opens in a scene of total desolation after a great war. And the very few remaining survivors are huddled around a fire in a dark cave. It's an excellent story. You should read it. But I'm going to cut to the ending where my class discussed, what is it that we would take into Armageddon when civilization had been destroyed and all hope lost. And some people said they would bring photographs to remember. Some people said tools and solar panels to try to rebuild. Some of us said we'd want to bring the great books and music. But as I stand here today, I have a more efficient answer. If I had to carry one thing into Armageddon, I would bring this man.
The Aspen Institute was founded by Jedi of another generation, Schweitzer, Pepke, Henry Crown, in the wake of a worldwide cataclysm. They were convinced that ideas matter, not dogma or ideology, but the thrust of a freely inquiring mind in consort with other minds. They can't be said to have routed the powers of darkness, but they kept the ideal alive. And that ideal was precisely the same as the one Keith Berwick espoused, which he had learned from O'Toole, and O'Toole from Adler, and Adler from others, in turn from others, all the way back to Aristotle. In the aftermath of the long Cold War that followed that initial conclave in 1949, the Berlin Wall was demolished and the Henry Crown Fellowship created, bringing with it a whole new roster of recruits for what was, in effect, a once-and-future dream of a legion to change the world. That is, of course, a synoptic account of our intergalactic host, the Praetorian Guard of those who would change the world, those whose idea of happiness is productive self-fulfillment for themselves and for everyone else, whose notion of justice is a good life lived by all. It goes without saying that every now and then one of us will lose his saber, sometimes in mortifying ways. But then it's equally true that life has many turns, an epic has many sequels, the river keeps on flowing. And what is my Yoda-like message tonight? As I stepped once again into this turbulent current, I come before you bearing Aristotle in this hand and Heraclitus in that. Think of it as adding a dash of one to flavor the other, if you will, a bit of Ben to sweeten the Mortimer. Let me tell you what else that pre-Socratic oracular Heraclitus has to say. It isn't changing that things find purpose. The way up and the way down are one and the same. If you don't expect the unexpected, you will never find it. The sun is new each day. So here we are then, Heraclitus, tossed together in this promiscuous heap with you and Aristotle, with Lester, Francis, and Muriel, Adler, Berwick, Battle, Reiling, Isaacson, on and on, the numberless ranks of AGLN knights increasing with each passing year. For the moment, ensconced once again in the warm cocoon of our mothership, we schmooze. In a day or two, we disperse to continue the fight for truth and justice, happiness, as the word is spread from nation to nation and star to star. March on and on, you intergalactic army of the just. You have nothing to lose but your shirts. Thank you very much.
I did briefly consider trying to get one of those toy lightsabers, but I thought maybe that might be a bit much. Ben was not just a very dear moderator, he was also my project mentor. And some years ago, he invited me to co-moderate a session, an alumni seminar with him in Greece. And a number of the fellows that came on that wonderful journey with us are here. I know that they will remember, as I do, Ben glowing like an Olympian god with joy at being able to share Homer and Heraclitus and Aristotle and Plato and Kofafi with all of us. And he also glowed with the very great joy of being able to share that time together with his incredible wife, Anne. Anne, earlier this year, passed beyond the boundary of this life to something beyond. When I got the news, I did what I do when I don't know what else to do. I wrote a poem, which I'm going to share with you now. It's Anne's poem. It's also Ben's poem. And I hope you'll take some of it into yourself. The title comes from Goethe. Were the eye not sun-like, the sun's light it could not see, which speaks to the fact that perception is itself a creative act. Were the eye not sun-like, in memory of Anne Dunlap. I end another week in avenues that stretch to sunset, a routine of small devotions. I will keep loving this town, this life, this moment. Some tasks are effortless, but it is useful to set intentions. Awareness is additive, exponentially. I recognize that I brighten in the contours of sound and color, yet falter in the rigor of detail. I'll say, here is a translucent tunnel. The journey to arrive will not be described. You're dropped in. I will whisper, unmakeable. Will you go? The repetition of a word, like deeper, can cause an instinctive rush. The tongue is a tuning fork. Beneath the skin, conductivity. These are the things you know because your earth body is electric. How to bend at the knees and open your chest, that the shoulder closest to the wave is everything, fate being one muscle. You must get square with fear. Things your water body knows, we become what we lose. We must yield what we grow. The heart is a tide pool, high and low. Look from the shore to the flower to the star, then back again. People mold people exponentially. My friend Ben married Anne 55 years ago. Theirs was a rare excitement. In Greece, we rode the ferry from Piraeus to Idra together, her laughter an unsinkable sun. Johann Sebastian Bach composed 6 works for solo violin shortly after the death of his wife. His cryptic title, Say Solo, sounds like 6 solos, but translates as you are alone. His chaconne for D minor belongs to the final movement of the second partita. From within the lament of a descending chromatic bass begin the double stops, two strings played at once. The sound is not love, it is the memory of love. Stars carry their own memories, the light of past incandescence. We need stars in our eyes to see them. What we call shooting stars aren't stars at all, but the dustfall of meteors, astral spindrift like the spray of a cresting wave. It is wise to practice ways of falling. Sometimes you need to use that shoulder to punch through and get clear, arch like a rainbow that is really a sphere, then go again. The world is a tide pool, shallow and rocky, in turns submerged and scorched, battered by wind and prevailing current. I think barnacles and starfish are very brave. We have things to learn from their liminal bodies. Thank you. Ben again.
Hi, I'm Ben Dunlap, and I am sending greetings and good vibes to the intergalactic army of the just. That's a phrase I used for the first time at the very first Aspen Forum when I stood on stage and looked out over the group of fellows, and I thought, my gosh, they look exactly like the Jedi Knights gathered at the end of the first Star Wars movie. And as someone might have told you, I am addressing you now from a galaxy far, far away, a place where it's possible for me to go backwards and forwards in time. I can replay events from the past as if in Kurt Vonnegut's Tralfamadorian time, or even more like having a cosmic Netflix subscription in which I can watch over and over every performance of Antigone that I have seen over the past 30 years. That would be beginning at a time before there even was an intergalactic army of the just, when Keith and Skip and I were just hitting our stride in Aspen, and Peter and Eric and Tommy still seemed wet behind the ears, and the rest of you were in the offing as brilliant new recruits for the army of the just, with names like Tanya and Tamsin, and, well, I could go on citing your names as if in a Homeric roll call, but suffice it to say that using a word intergalactic for the fellowship seems a lot more plausible now that you literally are a worldwide network. And when two of your number are among the very serious candidates to become the next president of the United States. Now, granted, where I'm addressing you from, where I live at the moment, a horse farm without any horses in the foothills of Appalachia is very far from that kind of action. But exercising my Tralfamadorian prerogative, I really do revisit so many of the discussions we've had over the years around the seminar table, remembering things you've said and treasuring our friendship. And I especially want to thank those of you who wrote to me after my wife's death a few months ago. And Tamsin, your poem for Anne is so beautiful. She would really have loved it. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a lot of writing now myself, and when in those sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, often things I thought I'd forgotten forever come back to mind. As for instance, a couple of nights ago, I suddenly remembered a one-act play that I wrote in high school. That would have been back in 1954. And in that performance, near the very end, as the actors, who were, of course, my friends and fellow students, stood on the stage in a kind of frozen symbolic tableau, I spoke through an off-stage mic in a voice that sounded like something out of the Twilight Zone, saying, "The dreamer dies, but never dies the dream." It wasn't my line. I picked it up somewhere or another. And in fact, it's not even very great poetry, but it's a compelling idea if there's somehow a way to make it true. And it strikes me now that this situation in which I address you via video is so close to the situation back in 1954 that I really ought to repeat the line one more time. The dreamer dies, but never dies the dream. And I realized that that really is my message for you. You are the dreamers and you are the doers. And it gives me great hope when I think how desperately your worlds and mine need the dream that you share. It gives me great hope. And it is with such hope that I join with Keith and Skip in saluting you now at this Action Forum. Or, as the people in my world used to say, Ave Atgewale, which is Latin, of course, and it means hail and may you fare well.